Good morning. I don't see my picture. How odd. Well, good morning, everybody. This is Heidi. I don't know. I was having a hard time getting in for some reason, and now it's showing that my camera, while it's on, and it's not unable to share webcam. My webcam is already in use. I have no idea what that means or how I can get this to work. So I guess, oh, I'm sorry. I was having a hard time getting in, so maybe it's open in another program. I don't know. Let me just see. No, I don't know. Well, I don't know. Does anybody have any ideas? Because otherwise I'm going to go without a camera today. Very awkward.
Restart your.
It says my webcam's already in use. Please close all other applications, but I don't think I have any more.
Yeah, I've had similar issues, and when I restart, it clears it up.
So I should get out and come back in?
Reboot.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's what I would suggest.
All right, I'll be right back. Sorry. You can do a roll call if you like.
Well, if I had the list in front of me, I'd do a roll call.
I have it. Can I help?
No, go ahead.
All right. I'll just call out names and listen for responses. Commissioner Bouchard. You.
Good morning.
Morning. Commissioner Cadena.
I'm here.
Commissioner Davis.
Yeah.
Commissioner Dell.
I'm here.
Commissioner Don Levy. I understand he was going to be absent. Commissioner Ferrante.
Here.
Excellent. Commissioner Kaltikoff. Not. Commissioner Lapis.
Good morning.
Morning. Commissioner Madrano.
Good morning. I'm here.
Commissioner Osaguera. Alex, you're on? No, not hearing him.
I'm sorry.
And Chair Sanborn, we just got to you in the alphabetical roll call.
Yeah,
You're here
my
now?
camera won't work today for some reason. I don't know what's going on, so.
Okay, and I'll just finish up. Commissioner Schneider.
Present and good morning.
Good morning. Commissioner Sky.
I'm here. Good morning.
Commissioner Toyota.
Good morning, I'm here.
Vice Chair Valle. And
Good
myself.
morning. Thank you. I'm here.
So I saw that Commissioner Don Levy and Kalpikoff missing and everybody else, oh, and Osaguera and everybody else present.
Thank you, Commissioner Ward. Yes, so we have 3 missing, and we've got Mr. Sky is going to have to leave, I think, at 10:30 today, correct? And do you want to make the announcement? Didn't you just have some big news to share?
Oh, it's not official yet. Ted was
Oh,
asking.
okay. Well, maybe at the next meeting. Okay, and so we've got, we don't have we won't be able to vote a consensus today. We don't have all of our commissioners here. So we'll go ahead, though, and move on to agenda item number 2. And that is review and potential approval of the meeting notes. Does anybody have any comments on the meeting notes, or do I hear a motion to approve them as written?
I'll move to approve, and I also want to express ongoing appreciation for Cal Recycle staff taking such detailed notes about all these conversations. It's hard to do that, and I appreciate that.
Well put. Is there a second?
I second.
Great. Okay. All those in favor, thumbs up or say aye. I have to say aye. Okay, great. Thank you. Anybody opposed or abstaining? All right. So we've moved our meeting minutes. That's agenda item number 2. We'll move on to agenda item 3. Public comment review for items not on the agenda. Cal Recycle, are there any public comments?
Good morning, this is Katarina Madabi with Cal Recycle. There are 2 public comments at this time. One relates to enforcement of truth in labeling, and the other on technology developed by New Light to convert greenhouse gases into a carbon negative material.
Great. Let's hear 'em.
The first one is from Shirley Frericks with Nevada County Waste Not. When can CalRecycle start enforcing the truth in labeling to stop the untrue claims for so-called recyclable and compostable foodware by Cisco and others? I want to introduce our restaurants and takeout places to the right stuff starting now. The
Okay,
second com-
just respond her quickly. I think the letter we sent to CalRecycle, I think was, they are not the enforcer. I believe it's the Attorney General's office. So that's where our letter was sent on. Is there anybody that wants to speak to that? That's my understanding is the AG enforces those rules, just to make sure they understand that. Okay, thank you.
I'll make a quick comment. If we're talking about SB 343, the new law, the truth in labeling law, it's my understanding, based on a conference with legal counsel, that the enforcement that consumers and organizations can actually demand proof of recyclability today. And if the companies don't respond, then that would be grounds for standing to then sue the companies. So the SB 343 requirement that there actually has to be proof that something's recyclable if it's labeled or claimed recyclable, I believe is an enforcement today, but one needs to seek their own legal counsel.
And if I might chime in on that, I think such seeking of clarification from local governments could be especially effective. It's the person that's from Nevada County, you might want to consider that.
Meaning that they should ask CalRecycle directly, or as a commission, since we've had the question raised to us, should we just ask CalRecycle?
My understanding of what Jan just said is that they should, the Nevada County could approach the company directly, Cisco, saying that you're claiming these materials are biodegradable and we don't think they are. And please, can you demonstrate proof? Isn't that what you were saying, Commissioner Dell?
That is correct. Everybody in California, perhaps even outside of California, can demand proof.
Well, that's right, because that they're supposed to maintain their records to prove their claims. So that would be a great, yeah. So yeah, we encourage you to go ahead and ask those companies to prove those claims, and we'd love to know how they respond. And I'm sure CalRecycle would as well. Next comment, please.
The second comment is from Allegra Curiel with New Light Technologies. New Light Technologies, Inc., New Light, expresses our support for statewide commission on recycling markets and curbside recycling leadership as they continue to develop policies to encourage source reduction, market development, greenhouse gas reduction, and recycling. New Light believes our California-based technology and manufacturing would be of interest to the commission. New Light was founded in 2003 to manufacture biomaterials that can replace oil-based plastics at global scale, helping to end plastic pollution and climate change. New Light has developed technology that uses naturally occurring microorganisms to convert greenhouse gases into a carbon-negative material called air carbon. A molecule made throughout nature that functions like plastic but contains no synthetic plastics, is reusable and dishwasher safe, and is certified as both industrial compostable, BPI certified, and home compostable, TUV OK Home Compostable certified. New Light thanks commissioners for their time and would welcome the opportunity to speak more about our technology.
That sounds very interesting. So that sounds like some sort of a replacement for plastic. And do we have a two-person committee that might be interested in looking at this? An organics committee or some other? And I see it looks like Commissioner Schneider, you wanted to speak to this?
Thank you, Chair. I would be interested. Part of what Commissioner Dell and I are trying to work on, but also part of the food service project, it would be very helpful to know which ones are actually really, truly 100% bio-based. So feel free to reach out to me.
Is there
assign it to me.
committee that's on this particular that we've set up already for this? Because this would be.
Well, I'm on the single-use plastics committee with Commissioner Schneider, and I think that it might be appropriate. And I just want to say that I recognize that there is widespread confusion between plastics, recyclable plastics, biodegradable plastics, and the associated claims. And that is an ongoing concern. I appreciate bio-based plastics, and I think they have potential, but I also recognize that their introduction into our current system creates confusion, which impedes their recovery on all fronts.
So this comment will be referred to that two-person committee on single-use plastics. Is that okay with everybody? Or does anybody have okay, sounds good. Looks like
Through
we
the
got thumbs
chair.
up. Yeah.
Through the chair, I have a question. Way back in the dark ages when the Waste Management Board tried to recommend certain types of products, they were told they couldn't. And I worked for local government then, and we had that same gray area that we couldn't recommend a particular product. Is that still the case?
I
And
think
maybe
so.
that's something we'll bring back as the subcommittee, because that's part of the confusion. If we can't recommend even something that has gone through all the science certification that it's truly bio-based, then it gets hard to educate the public.
Yes. I think the state policy is that they can't promote one business over another in a space, but they can talk about technologies, you know. So if why don't you dig into this a little more and then come back with some suggestions and maybe some data requests for CalRecycle. Thank you both for taking that on. Are there any other public comments, Katerina?
No additional public comments at this time.
Very good. Thank you very much. So we will go ahead and then we will move on to, we have two agenda items that it doesn't look like we have materials for. So I'm just going to quickly see agenda item 4. We had discussed having a policy that we might consider on toxics, eliminating toxics and additives in plastic containers. And I believe Commissioner Dunleavy has emailed me. He's not here today and didn't want this brought up because they weren't ready. I can't remember who else was working on that. Maybe, was it just him?
I am. Yes,
okay.
we drafted a policy and it's been posted, but Commissioner Dunleavy is not available for the meeting today. So we should wait and discuss it at the next meeting. But this one can be put on the agenda for the next meeting.
Okay. Then we will, with no more information there, we'll go ahead and move on to agenda item number 5, which is food grade packaging policy discussion. This one, I believe also is not ready. So I think this is Commissioners Dell and Schneider. Did you want to address this?
Yeah, sure. So as this one was introduced in the last meeting, and at that time I stated that this was going to be a slow cook because it's an evolving issue with new science and research coming out every day. So we don't have an update to discuss to push a policy forward at this point. The one update I can say is that the Canadian government came out with their list of what types of items should have recycled content, and they did this for a consultation document to get input. And the only item for food grade that they had listed were beverage bottles, which is actually consistent with California's current law of only beverage bottles having a mandate for recycled content. No other food grade packaging did they recommend at this time. So I think this is going to be a slow burn, and I don't even think it should be on the next commission. I think that, again, this is going to be one that we're going to see the evolution of what other states, countries are doing, what the science is coming out, and that we should take this slow and measured and be very careful with what policy gets recommended.
Okay. Okay. Well, then I guess we'll go ahead and move on. So this you're proposing would be on the next agenda?
No, I would wait even to the one after that.
Okay. And I'm going to actually propose at the end of the meeting that we not have the early March meeting. I'm sensing everybody's getting overloaded, but we can discuss that later and see when we're going to have the next meeting. Okay, then we'll go ahead and move on to agenda item number 6, which is the design for recycling proposal. And I believe Commissioner Sky, you and I were working on this. And I think you sent me something, but did I forget to post it on the site?
I didn't see it on the site. I can pull up the latest draft. I'll have
Why
to
don't we
find-
do that and then I can, and if you re-email it to me, I'll upload it.
Why don't you, just to, so you can continue to run the meeting, Chair Sanborn, Kobe, why don't you send that to me on the email and I'll post it?
Okay, sure.
That'd be great. And then Kobe, do you want to show your, oh, I think I just figured out what happened. I had a Teams meeting open and that was taking up my camera space. Okay, so go ahead and Kobe, do you want to show your screen and the draft and then we can just walk through it?
Yes, I can do that. I'm bringing it up right now.
Thank you. Okay. I'm sorry, somehow that didn't get on the Google Doc.
No problem.
This is
Okay.
our first hearing. So it should be all right.
Let me see if you can see the screen there.
Yep.
Perfect. So first I want to thank the Commission for entrusting the Chair and I to work on this policy. I know that there is a lot of interest in addressing thermoforms, and I think related to that, some of the issues that affect the recyclability of products placed in curbside. It's definitely very related to the charge of the Commission. And so I really just built on the work that was done on thermoforms and also the U.S. Plastics Pact that developed an extensive problematic and unnecessary materials list, which very much relates to the work that we're doing. You see some background here regarding, so let me ask, would it be helpful, since this is the first time all of us are seeing this, for me to just read through it? And I will do my best. I think Ted is better at editing as we go, but I will edit the document in real time. I see some nods, so I'll do that.
Yes.
So this is a draft proposal. Since the 1980s, many companies have marketed their consumer products as having an environmental benefit, such as being recyclable, compostable, or all natural. There's a footnote there. Business for social responsibility from a little over a decade ago. Non-recyclable and non-compostable products and materials and other hazardous items are often placed in curbside recycling bins due to confusion over labels and a desire by consumers to be more sustainable. Unfortunately, such items may cause harm to workers, trucks, and processing facilities. The damages include fires, costly processing and sorting, and contamination of bales from MRFs. And I was intending to spell that out.
Commissioner Sky, can you zoom in a little?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
I think what I need to do is minimize GoToMeeting so I can see the rest of this better. Okay. Does that work a little better?
Yes, much better.
Definitely. You might be able to drag it from the sides to make it bigger. But
Similarly, composting facilities require additional labor for sorting and removing contaminants advertised as compostable but which do not decompose. So any comments on the first paragraph? And I no longer see you, so Ted or Heidi, if you let me know if there's any comments or hands raised.
okay, thanks.
Assuming none, I'll move forward. Research by CalRecycle and the Recycling Partnership shows that California's consumers improperly properly, and I think consumers can be lowercase. Improperly place non-recyclable materials and products in their curbside recycling bins because they are confused whether an item is compostable, recyclable, or disposable in curbside bins or is a hazardous waste that should be returned via mobile HHW or other HHW events. And I think this may be the first time we use household hazardous waste. The chasing recycling arrows inappropriate placed on HHW packaging exacerbates the contamination of recycling and composting streams.
I think that's the wrong spelling of exacerbates. Says
think that's a C.
exasperates. Oh, maybe
Exas-
that's
Yeah, I think I misstated it. Exasperates the contamination. Commonly recycled items comprised 22.8% of the state's 2018 single-family residential disposal. These are CalRecycle figures. TRP found on average that 20% of materials delivered to California's MRFs were not accepted by local curbside recycling programs. And even materials listed as acceptable are oftentimes not recyclable. And the Commission has spent a lot of time discussing that challenging issue. Any comments on these next two paragraphs?
I don't see any.
So the U.S. Plastics Pact problematic and unnecessary material list. Consumer products that are not practically compostable or recyclable in municipal systems should be eliminated or redesigned into environmentally advantageous materials that can be recycled or truly composted. The U.S. Plastics Pact, which includes businesses, not-for-profit organizations, government agencies, and research institutions, recently released its problematic and unnecessary materials list as part of its Plastic Circular Economy Initiative. The list includes plastic packaging items, components, or materials where consumption could be avoided through elimination, reuse, or replacement. The list also includes post-consumption items that are detrimental to the recycling or composting systems due to their format, composition, size, or residual contaminants. And this is the full list. We have it numbered, so I'll get rid of the bullets as we go. So intentionally added PFAS, non-detectable pigments such as carbon black, opaque or pigmented PET, any color other than transparent blue or green.
I have a comment there. Green is not recyclable in California. So, I mean, this list is very much a subset of all the things that aren't recyclable. So can I ask you in advance how you're going to address that?
I'll let him finish this. I mean, this is exactly what was on the list from the U.S. Plastics Pact, and we could certainly go back and edit it for our needs, but this is what I think was being referenced, yeah.
Right, and it was not comprehensive at all to the U.S. Of what's not recyclable. It's very much a subset and not comprehensive.
Commissioner Schneider and then Commissioner Lapis are in the chat.
Thank you. And this is a little nitpicky. When we say eliminate, I think we're also intending that to be product or material substitution. I didn't see substitution used anywhere in here. Maybe the term has gone out of style, or maybe we can also add it. Your call, Kobe.
Yes, I think we said elimination, reuse, or replacement. So I think replacement and substitution are interchangeable. But
I guess when I hear replacement, I hear, well, we'll just replace it with a different type of product or package versus material substitution, where we try to get rid of the bad resins or the bad materials and substitute it for something that is truly recyclable. It's just back in the days when I was teaching this, substitution within the packaging engineering world meant something different.
Okay. Does changing the word right there address your suggestion?
Yeah, and I had seen it in the earlier paragraph, but didn't want to nitpick at that time. And maybe it's something we'll hear from the packaging engineers in there. It was many years ago, I worked with packaging engineers who did a fabulous booklet on environmentally preferable packaging that the IOPP killed nationally because it was so good. It was so scary for them. But substitution and replacement to me are two different things, or include both.
Very good.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And the intent of using the plastic pack list is that it's a starting point. I think it's a list that has wide support. And so we thought, let's start with this and see if we can get consensus on at least this list, and we can certainly add to it. So I think we talked about opaco-pigmented PET.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Lapis also had a comment.
Oh, sure.
I was basically just going to make the same point of I'm glad we're including it as is, because I think it's a really big deal that that this list is out there. I do at some point, if when we're developing our own, commentary on this, I do believe when we had the PET reclaimers presenting about a year ago, they said there were markets for some green PET, but it was worth a lot less. And I believe they said that there were no markets for any blue in California. And that seems contrary to what the way Jan remembers it, so maybe we just get a point of clarification. But either way, I think we should include this list as is, because that's the way it was published. So,
well, I'll just respond that since that time I'm in contact with a PET recycler out in Riverside, and he's got 6 loads of green PET wash that he can't sell to anyone. So there's an update for you.
Good to know.
Thank you, Commissioner Lapis. Any other questions before I go through the rest of the list? So the remaining list from the pact includes oxo-degradable additives, including the oxo-biodegradable additives, PETG, PET glycol and rigid packaging, problematic label constrictions, including adhesives, inks, and materials such as PETG, PVC, PLA, and paper, and avoid formats, materials, and features that render a package detrimental or non-recyclable per the APR design guide. Labels should meet APR preferred guidance for coverage and compatibility and be tested in areas where this is unclear. Number 7 in polystyrene, including expanded polystyrene. Number 8 is PVC, including PVDC, polyvinylidene chloride, and then cutlery, stirrers, and straws. If there are no other comments here, then I'll move forward to the...
Kobe, my only comment is actually on the U.S. Plastics Pact, I was raising the issue of why 2025 and why not sooner for some of this. And so I just want to throw it out there that we could change the date if we thought it was doable and something we were interested in. I just don't want to, just because that's what came out, we don't have to stick with that either. So, Commissioner Dow?
Yeah, actually, I'm going to go back and echo, and maybe it was Commissioner Lapis's point. If you're just repeating what the U.S. Plastic Pact said, then that is, you should just repeat that. But now, if we take that and then expand it to what we want for California to eliminate, then that becomes a new part. And that's what I recommend. I think that is the point. They did not say green in their list, so we should not say that they said green in their list. But the reality is their list is not sufficient at all. There are a lot of stakeholders involved from the plastics industry in that group who did not include things that are not recyclable. And so I hope what this proposal is actually take their list, but now let's say what works, what's best for California, right? And then expand it, or if we don't agree with any of them, take them off, but make a list that is right for us.
I could suggest deleting the parenthetical clarification here. Does anyone have concerns about that?
That wasn't in the... I'm looking at
So the list included opaque and pigmented PET, and it sounds like we might be adding confusion by...
Well, it did say on their opaque or pigmented PET bottles, and in parentheses, any color other than transparent blue or green. That is
Right.
exactly what it says. So we should just leave it what it's, I think, I agree with Commissioner Dell that we just state what the PAC did and then we can decide if we want to change it.
Okay,
Okay.
then I'll leave it as is. So moving to the next section. According to the FTC Green Guides, which are cross-referenced with federal and state law summarized below, a company can make a recyclable claim so long as the product is recyclable in at least 60% of the communities in which it is sold. However, the Commission has developed recommendations for labeling specific to California, and the note there is to add the reference to the adopted policy. So we'll add that in post. Some products and materials no longer have local markets. For example, mist plastics number 337 that contaminate the waste stream continue to be labeled with chasing arrows. California has led the way to suspend the use of the recycling chasing arrows on non-recyclable products and packaging by passing SB 343 in 2022, and we should see great changes to labeling practices by July of 2025. Any
That's a great paragraph. Tony.
What's that?
That's a
Commissioner
great
Ward?
paragraph. I like that.
I think we need to indicate plastic packages as individuals because, of course, mixed plastics are never labeled in a group. So we want to say plastic packages with numbers 3 through 7.
Good point.
Plastic packages with numbers. Plastic packages numbered.
Or maybe I should say packaging using
Labeled.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah, that looks good.
And then drop the that, and then I think we're good.
Okay, so now it'll read, for example, packaging using plastics number 337 contaminate the waste stream, but
And add the word yet. Yet. There you go.
continue to be labeled with chasing arrows.
It continue to be labeled up. Yeah. Good.
Okay. Very good. And we'll hopefully see some changes to that very soon. So I'll move to the purpose. Purpose of this policy recommendation is to end contaminants to curbside recycling by IRAP banning the manufacturing and sale, distribution of non-compostable, non-recyclable products and materials, adhesives, embedded batteries, and composite materials that do not serve an essential function and can be easily replaced by alternatives that can be recycled or are less hazardous or damaging to the environment and can be easily removed from the recycling stream at MRFs.
Kobe, when you read that, it made me think about something I'm working on now, which is the single-use vaping products, because they have batteries, but there's a reusable alternative. So how do we say, is embedded batteries that do not serve an essential function? Because the batteries do serve an essential function and can be easily replaced by alternatives. It can be about reusable, recycled, or are less hazardous or damaging. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Can be reusable or reused, recycled.
Yeah, reused, I think makes sense. And do we want to say substituted instead of replaced here?
Yeah, that sounds good. Be substituted.
I feel like this is a bit of a run-on sentence, so I wonder, but we want to make sure all the different options for off-ramps essentially are listed.
And Commissioner Madrano wants to say something?
Hey, Chair, if we could remove, I suggest to remove the qualifiers easily.
Yeah,
And just,
good point. Nothing's easy.
also
Yeah.
before easily remove.
Yeah.
And then at the last sentence too, yeah. Good suggestion.
And it's implied when we say recycling that it also means compostable.
I think so, but I don't mind spelling it out because we mentioned it separately before. Reuse, recycled, composted. or are less hazardous or damaging to the environment.
Mhm. I like that better. Good.
So I'll keep going. California's large and diverse consumer base also needs an easy, quick, and an accurate way to determine the correct management method for their products and packaging. This policy will establish labeling and design changes that provide clear information to consumers on whether they should dispose, compost, or recycle the product. There should be a slash there. Material or dispose of the hazardous product material through HHW special collections even as the hazardous contents were emptied. And this gets back to Commissioner Dell's point about very toxic items that are put in plastics that would normally be recycled, but we really do not want them placed in the recycling bin. This policy does not intend to define which products fall into recyclable, compostable, or hazardous categories, as those definitions are already defined by the regulations and covered in other commission policies. And again, I'll link to the specific policies, both labeling and recyclability and compostability. However, this policy recommends prohibitions on non-recyclable and non-compostable products, materials, if reusable, recyclable, or compostable alternatives exist. And we added that so I could take the highlight off. The chasing arrows recycling symbol should not be allowed on certain products, materials, for example, PVC number 3 plastic bags, film plastic, polystyrene number 6, etc., that are placed in curbside recycling programs and contaminate bales of other recyclables, clog MRF machinery, or cause fires. This policy aims to motivate companies to redesign products to achieve acceptance on the compostable and recyclable statewide lists and avoid being banned from sale. The product material cannot be labeled recyclable or compostable unless they have credible and legal markets to be recycled or verified degradation in California composting facilities.
Commissioner Lapis has a comment.
Yeah, I was thinking it might make sense for us not to conflate the chasing arrows policy, which was a separate policy from this document. I mean, we already have a policy saying that they shouldn't use chasing arrows, and that was passed into law. I think in most cases, a lot of these things should not be used, period. And I think that that's a bigger policy statement. So maybe the use of...
Maybe we can connect the last two sentences here. Recommends prohibitions on non-recyclable, non-compostable products. So I think I can just delete this part.
Yeah, I think that's way better than what I was going to suggest.
I completely agree. We can't conflate this with SB 343, which is already in law and is being rolled out on what is the chasing, can the chasing arrows go on?
There you go. Thank you. Any other comments on these two paragraphs?
Commissioner Ward?
I just thought this might be a time to voice a general concern, and that is that because California doesn't have a green chemistry policy that's in place, a lot of the commission's efforts, like this one, are essentially dancing around that very issue. And I guess I have an ongoing concern about us not weighing in on green chemistry at all and then chipping away at the edges. And then particularly with respect to the waste prevention policy I'd propose that the commission has adopted, having CalRecycle do and orientate some sort of producer or manufacturer oriented outreach to try to prevent the introduction of these things, because I really feel like every time these new products are introduced or new packages improperly labeled, we're always playing catch up. Oh, now here's another one. Now here's another one. Now how are we going to respond to this? So to me, this is in the final document, I would suggest that we do add a paragraph expressing our ongoing chagrin about not having green chemistry in place, and that this policy and the other design for recycling policies be sort of lumped together in the report so that we can make sure that they're consistent and they read well.
I like that idea.
Mm-hmm. I do too. We need to make everything very, very clean for the legislature to truly understand and follow us and make sure we're not making things more confusing for them because they're counting on us to help them clarify things.
Okay, so I'll consider that, because I'm not hearing any objection, that we'll try to fold some paragraph addressing green chemistry into the final report. It won't be a policy, it'll just be a context.
That's good.
So moving on, there are wide-ranging benefits of this policy recommendation, including minimized contamination by reducing consumer confusion, reduced worker hazards and operating costs for MRFs, increased PET bottle glass and cardboard bale quality and value for MRFs, easy to understand label guidance for consumers to correctly manage used items, and reduction of waste to landfills. Product manufacturers will have clear guidance and expectations on communicating compostability and recyclability claims, and MRFs can focus on recovering a fixed set of products and marketable materials. The cost of CalRecycle could potentially be covered by existing budget allocations for public education. Cost of correctly labeled products should be borne by companies as normal cost of compliance. There are also unknown ongoing costs for enforcement, and we talk a little bit about potential options for covering those costs.
And my general sense is that CalRecycle's budgets are very thin, and assuming they can cover anything out of an existing pot is probably a stretch. So we'd have to confirm that if that was language we wanted to keep.
I think I saw some commissioners with comments.
Yeah, can we say PET and HDPE bottles and jugs, please?
Yeah, maybe I could be more general since we're talking about materials. PET, HDPE, glass and cardboard.
Bottles and jugs. Bottles and jugs.
Do we want to mention thermoforms or?
No, they didn't pass the test.
I'm trying to be general just in terms of the types of bales, the material types, not necessarily the.
Okay, then take it out and just the material bale quality then.
Maybe commodity bale quality. What's the best terminology for the bales?
Kobe, can you repeat that question, please?
I was suggesting commodity as a way to cover all the different recovered items that are that MRFs are processing and reselling.
Yeah, that's a general term that we use in our industry, commodities.
Okay.
Commodity deals.
Very good. Any other comments on these two paragraphs before I jump to the proposal? Okay.
Now, one more thing, Kobe, if you don't mind, just a real quick question. Did I hear somewhere previous to this paragraph about covering the cost of processing, et cetera? Was that, I thought I heard you say that.
That was in this highlighted paragraph, and I'm open to changes on that. The proposal does cover costs, so if you want, we can, I'll show how we propose to address costs, and we can further.
That's a point of clarification, and who would determine the cost, what's the process, et cetera. We're not going to try to spell that out, are we? That's a very complex issue.
It's almost unknowable because it really depends on how manufacturers respond to this. And there's, an almost infinite way for them to shift, the way they process it, the way they label products, shifting even from plastic to glass. So we probably won't try to really get a clear answer to that.
Okay.
I would suggest we take that paragraph out, quite frankly, because let's really be careful what we say about costs. We've done no research on this and yeah, I'd feel better just leaving it out for now.
Sounds good.
Okay.
So the proposal includes the following actions. 1, creation of a prohibited unnecessary products list, using the PACS list as a start. And this is where if commissioners have specific recommendations for other consensus items, I would welcome that feedback. So CalRecycle would develop simple and understandable statewide lists of products and materials that are prohibited for sale in California by 2025 unless they're redesigned. The PUP list shall be updated periodically and cross-referenced with other lists of compostable, recycled, and hazardous materials and products. Products and materials on the PUP list would be barred from placing the circular, the Chasing Arrows graphic on its packaging, and that's already covered by existing law. Until the item becomes recyclable, once a product becomes recyclable, it can be removed from a PUP list and the Chasing Arrows can be used. Secondly, except for hazardous waste, items on the PUP list can also only be placed in specified jurisdictions or recycling curbside carts, provided that local residential and commercial franchise delivers the items to a MRF that accepts the item to recycle it or returns the item to the manufacturer. And I should probably not be just specific to franchises, but local commercial and residential collection delivers the item to a MRF that accepts the item. If the locally accepted item cannot be recycled or composted throughout the state, the packaging should not display the Chasing Arrow symbol and should use stronger qualifying language to specifically educate the customer on how to recycle, stating something like this product is recyclable only in the communities that have appropriate recycling programs.
And Commissioner Lapis has a comment?
Yeah, a few different comments. On number 1, I want to make sure we don't lose track of the toxicity as well. If a product could become recyclable and still be toxic, like PVC packaging.
Mm-hmm.
And then in C, or whichever one we were just looking at, 2 things. First of all, again, I don't think it's about chasing arrows. I think it's about ability to be sold in the state. And I think that should be our focus. That was kind of my main thought. And then I'm not comfortable with the terminology of this product is recyclable in a few communities because I feel like that's been abused to imply recyclability for things that have not been recyclable in the past.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think
Totally agree with that.
yeah, we could take this part out because that was already covered in our other policy.
Yeah, 100% agree with Commissioner Lapis again today.
Wait for Commissioner Toyota.
Sorry.
Sorry. Commissioner Toyota and then Commissioner.
If everyone agrees, I'm going to delete this part of B.
Yeah, and actually my comment was exactly on that as well. What I might suggest is that if we do put something on the manufacturer about how to dispose of it, that should be on them. It shouldn't be check locally or you go find this out or, go ask them. It should be, you can do this here and it should be available on their website, easily made easy to find, but that commitment and that energy that it takes to do that should be on them so that people might also educate themselves that this is only recyclable in 3 places in the entire state. That gives me information when I want to purchase it. But if I'm so for that, either take it out or put it on them specifically and write it out. You will have to have this information for the public.
I call it the wild goose chase language. Commissioner Down and Ward.
Okay, I'm really concerned that we even talk about recyclability and labels in this at all. I don't think it should be in it. We just passed SB 343. It's going into effect. It says certain things can be called recyclable or not There'll be no check locally. And now we're proposing something that will weaken that or conflict with it. We can talk about hazardous waste and making those things with a big bad poison symbol or making them all out in a red container. That's all new. But I don't think any of this should be talking about can one piece of polystyrene, expanded polystyrene be accepted somewhere and then let's go see if that can happen. No, this was all SB 343. That's done. Let that get implemented. Let's address the hazardous waste, the malathion bottles and PET, and go after those in these. And then if you want to make a ban list on things, terrific. Let's go for that. But what is recyclable and how does it get labeled? We've done this in SB 343. Let's let that get implemented.
Good point. Then I've taken out the recycling part of it, and then I want to address the toxicity part. In this more directly. So we talk about hazardous.
My comment was on the hazardous materials and specifically that to the extent that we mentioned the cost of managing residual hazardous product, I think it's appropriate that we mention that we should be moving towards producer responsibility programs for that, because these have always been a cost saddled by local government and paid for by ratepayers. But until and unless the companies producing these things actually have a cost for foisting these poisons on local government, then they don't have a disincentive to overproduce. So I think that's an important part of policy.
So I think this is cleaned up a lot better now. It talks about these products being prohibited for sale unless redesigned, and specifically focused on compostable, recyclable, and hazardous. If there are additional lists for toxins or poisons or other things that we want to include, in my mind, hazardous and household hazardous waste lists already cover those, most of those products. But I would definitely be open to suggestions on how to make sure this covers those items. So the new 1B would now read, the published should be cross-referenced with, cross-referenced with California's recyclable, compostable, and hazardous products list, which the Statewide Commission on Recycling Markets is developing statewide definitions of what is recyclable and what is compostable. The definitions of recyclable and compostable are based on Sustainable Packaging for the State of California Act in 2018. And lastly,
we've already done this, and that already ended up in 2 bills last year about the definitions, right? So it's
Yes.
not we are developing. We developed. We gave advice, and then the legislature did. Yeah.
Kobe, my last statement, if you could add to the last portion of Section A, compostable, recyclable product materials with specified products, producer responsibilities, and hazardous materials products. That way we set it as a separate category, and I think that will help legislative staff on this. Compostable, recyclable, products under extended producer responsibility programs, and hazardous.
Shall be updated periodically.
Was that what you're thinking of, Ted?
Thank you.
Okay, I think Commissioner Dell had a comment.
Yeah, so what is recyclable is now in the hands of CalRecycle to do the first part of the assessment of what's accepted and so on. So it's not, again, we're not the deciders, this commission, but And so this is a forward-looking policy. When this would get adopted would probably be after the California, Cal Recycle, that list has come about. But if we can put a comment that it should really be their list, the state list, right? Until that time, I guess it could reference our old list, but it really should be the state decided list that gets cross-referenced, correct?
I think we say that in the policy, don't we, Kobe?
Yes.
Yeah. It's very clear that it's Cal Recycle's list.
But this one says in which the statewide commission established something.
Well, that was what I was kind of trying to get at was we gave advice and those things have already gone, and maybe we just not reference the commission and just say that, the legislature in 2021 passed legislation to define these terms, and I guess they're not finished yet because they have to go through regs process. Is that right, Commissioner Lapis? I don't know on the compostable if that was finalized or not.
Sorry, it took me a minute to unmute. I believe, I don't want to misspeak, but I believe the compostable is in effect immediately.
Okay.
So there's no implementation there. With the exception of the National Organic Program requirements, which have a few years implementation.
So we did not establish statewide definitions. We made policy recommendations. So we say the California legislature passed, and say SB 343 and AB 1201 to address the definitions of what is recyclable, what is compostable. So that's the guidance really from the legislature to Cal Recycle.
Okay, so I'll replace that language. Commissioner Lapis, if you wouldn't mind sending me, a sentence to replace this portion, that would be very helpful.
Because I think it's different. The two bills handled the definitions differently. So we'll just have to put some thought into that. I can help too.
Yeah, and we can mention both. And so the last part of the section 1, the PUP list should not have materials products on California's list of hazardous waste and materials defined by DTSC.
Can you go back to the paragraph before? The definitions of recyclable and compostable materials are based on the Sustainable Packaging for California, State of California Act of 2018, which Cal Recycle is addressing. That's kind of vague. Or you mean is updating based on SB 343? Yeah.
Yes. This whole paragraph I'll replace.
Okay. I just want to make sure that was.
We're going to reference these regulations as well as the new regulations. So the proposal for labels are very similar to what we developed in the labeling policy, and we'll add a reference to that as well. We specifically want to label hazardous products defined by DTSC must be labeled as hazardous with specific instructions or proper management and recycling or disposal options. Such products cannot be collected via curbside bins unless the local jurisdiction accepts the materials as a local addition to its curbside HHW collection program. Under recyclable products that can be recycled are allowed to have a recyclable chasing arrow symbol on the packaging and product. And we reference the list. Let me highlight that. We'll probably use the same acronym, but if we end up changing it, I'll revise it here. Compostable products defined as compostable would be allowed to have a compostable symbol on the packaging and product. The word compostable may be employed on the product or packaging or both. Products not on the compostable list may not use composting-related symbols or variations of the word compost or claim similar attributes such as degradable or biodegradable. And other organic waste not destined for composting may need additional labeling. Highlight the list again here. trash bin. So products on the PUP list may not use recyclable related symbols, triangles, or Mobius loop or variations of the word recycle on labels or make any recycling claims. These products may be labeled trash only or landfill only, but are not required to be labeled unless required by specific legislation. And then we have private take-back programs, products that are not on the compostable or recyclable lists and are collected via private take-back schemes. And this relates to the EPR discussion we had earlier. May use labels such as store drop-off or return to company. They may not use a word, symbol, or claim of recyclable or compostable to distinguish from products intended to be recycled or composted via curbside collection programs.
Commissioner Scott, so I agree with Commissioner Dell that I really don't want to conflate 343. I don't want to touch anything that's going to be confusing. And I'm wondering if we just, I'm trying to figure out how to address, because I had originally proposed something very narrow, and then we were asked to broaden it to make it about design for recyclability. Now it's kind of getting into labeling. And I guess I just want to keep this narrow and make sure we're not stepping on the toes of everything we've already done or making things more confusing.
A lot of this section is already in our labeling policy, possibly with the exception of the precautionary principle. I can replace this section entirely with a reference to our labeling policy.
That's what I would rather do. I'd rather reference our existing policies than write it as though this is a new thing, because it's really not. And I think that would be, plus anytime my attorneys taught me, anytime you repeat things, the chances of making a mistake and then confusing your situation goes up dramatically. Thank you. And I just want to say thank you, because Kobe worked very hard on this, and it's always hardest to be the first to put pen to paper. And so I want to profusely thank him, because he did 99% of this, and I just edited it. So it's a lot of work to do these policies.
Ditto on the kudos to Kobe. Thank you for taking the lead on this.
So I have an asterisk in there. Yeah, I think this was supposed to be designed for recyclability, and then now it's become this huge labeling thing. And I really hope it can just focus on the design for, yes, so it's good. Let's just reference the old labeling policy that is out there, which in a way has been supplanted by SB 343 anyway. And just focus on design for recyclability, right?
Yes, I agree. And I think 343 went a long way, but I think our labeling policy has some of these additional aspects. So labeling and design are very much related to one another, but there's no sense in reinventing the wheel. So I think it makes a lot of sense to just refer to the policy we already have. And if there's any updates we want to make to that policy, we can do that as part of our next report to the legislature in light of 343 and other laws. But I'll make that change. So the last recommendation on enforcement and monitoring, CalRecycle shall periodically evaluate if various products materials should be added or removed from the PUP list and the recycling list based on technological advancements, upgrades at MERS that can process certain non-toxic and non-contaminating products on the PUP list. CalRecycle shall collect product material registration fees based on volume of sales or other fair scheme to protect small manufacturers, or by offering a tiered rate structure with fee reductions based on verified recyclability or compostability. So this was our recommendation. Essentially, anything on the PUP list should be paying a fee to CalRecycle so that CalRecycle can maintain and update the list. And once they're shown to be no longer a problematic product, they can be removed. Commissioner Ward?
I think we should add on there, based on volume of sales, and right after sales, the cost to manage residual product. because again, how hazardous wastes are costly to manage and non-hazardous wastes are much more reasonable. So we need to include in there a disincentive to make products hazardous. Thank you.
Great suggestion. Did I see another asterisk?
Yep, I'm back again. So I'm confused. Did I see above that you wanted to say these things are banned, that these things should not exist? And now you're saying there's a cost to them and maybe they can come back later?
Well,
If there's an existing cost that's significant, then yeah, I think the ban should be considered, but the costs are already demonstrable.
there will be some products that are not curbside recyclable, such as hazardous items, that will still exist, and those are the ones that would be charged a fee. I know it's a little bit confusing because there's a long list of things that we are recommending to phase out entirely. But the products that remain but that are also still not curbside recyclable would be paying the fee.
And Kobe, can you briefly go over the precautionary principle item? We kind of skipped over that, and I'm not exactly sure how that would work.
So maybe this is something I should add to the labeling policy rather than having here, because it's not so much a design as a labeling recommendation.
Yeah, I think we need to be very clear about labeling versus designing the entire package and keep them very separate. By the way, all this feedback is incredibly helpful because this is not going to go anywhere until June and we have time to really think about it.
I think I saw Commissioner Lapis.
He withdrew.
Okay. Very good. Okay, then, so now we have a much more focused policy. I really appreciate this feedback, and I think the next iteration will be even closer to being ready. So we do expect this would require legislation or work with other agencies such as DTSC. It could be a legislative priority, and I think this would be 2022. This is the old form. Proposal could require additional funding. So our comment here is the prohibition would require fees to be set on HHW products first and monies collected to fund CalRecycle's implementation of this program, to develop and maintain the list of prohibited products and materials and work with local recycling authorities. Cost to change the materials to recyclable alternatives, let's say substitutes. The design and labels of prohibited products and materials would be borne by companies as normal cost of compliance. There would also be unknown ongoing costs for enforcement. And I think some of the enforcement costs could also be covered by these volume fees. Any comments on that before I wrap up?
I like the idea, Kobe. Good.
Awesome, thank you. So there was discussion about an accelerated schedule for implementation. We put 2023, we're trying to be as aggressive as possible with the program fully implemented by 2025. And then we touch on some of the related policies. And then here is just a section on summary of relevant state and federal laws. And this isn't as critical for the policy. So this can be reviewed between now and the next time the commission reviews this. I know that we're short on time today. I'll discontinue sharing and just once again thank all of the commissioners for your feedback on making this policy even better.
Commissioner Sky, awesome work. Thank you so much. This is a very big deal. And as Commissioner Dell said, some of these are big and they need time to stew and we need time to think about them. So I think this would be you and I should spend some time going over this again, moving things to labeling and other things, keeping it really clean on design, and then bringing it back at the next meeting on a separate item and we'll consider this we're not even going to consider this kind of first reading today because honestly, we didn't have it posted and this is your very first look at it. So we'll consider the next one the first reading. So everybody out there who's watching and realizes this is a very big deal, it's okay. There's going to be plenty of time. And we would appreciate your feedback. So if you want to put it through the portal, that would be great. And speaking of that, do we have any public comment on this item?
There are no public comments at the time.
If I could, an editorial comment on the presentation, Madam Chair. I just want to point the commissioners and the public to an article that I think is very timely on this issue that was in Resource Recycling in January's edition on page 16, entitled Brand Settles Recyclability Suit as Another Fight Continues. And they reference a brand and a manufacturer, and the lawsuit is in Alameda County and was brought forward by Greenpeace. I encourage you to read that article because it talks about truth in labeling and 343. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, the work that we're doing is getting a lot of national attention. In fact, I'll be at the the Plastics Conference in DC on the 7th through the 9th of March, and I'm going to be speaking on the Truth in Labeling bill. And it's apparently being discussed by brands all the time. Everybody I talk to that's going to conferences is saying that this is really top of mind for them. So thanks again to everybody here for all your amazing work. It's reverberating across the country. So thanks again, Commissioner Sky, great work. And you and I should schedule time to just buckle down and revisit this and bring it back at the next meeting. Okay, so with that, we can go ahead and move on to agenda item number 7, which is when we were going to talk about the policy committee's reports and the report contents and format. And I'm going to turn it over to Commissioners Sky and Ward. They are working on the report and they have sent out some emails to all of you asking about your 2-person committees. Are you going to be producing anything in the next few months that might end up, would end up in the report, because they need to really start formatting that report now. And it's really yeoman's work. It's a lot of work to do these reports. So what we can do to help them is to give them a clean answer as to whether there will be any more products from your 2-person working groups. So I'll turn it over to Commissioners Sky and Ward to talk about the report and ask any questions of the commissioners regarding what they're going to have ready for the next report.
I'll just say something briefly before turning it over to Commissioner Ward. First to say Commissioner Ward has done an incredible amount of work in developing not just this draft report, but previous reports. It's so much value for all of us, and the way that he can wordsmith things and put it together is great. We really rely on especially the 2-person committees, and again, Commissioner Ward has helped us by providing a gentle reminder of the work that needs to get done in some areas that I think would be very valuable to include in this next report. This is an important timing for us to support the work of the legislature, and we've had great successes. The portion of the report that I'm working on is to highlight just how much success our work has had in terms of legislation being adopted and policies moving forward. So you'll see that in the next revised version of the draft. Commissioner Ward?
Yeah, thank you. Let's see, I'm trying to share my screen. I don't think I'm doing it very well.
Oh, you are. We're just seeing everything. Probably more than you want us to see.
It's right, exactly.
That's always the risk of screen sharing.
Right. Let's stop sharing and we'll try that again. Hang on.
And I can, while you're doing that, I can give you an update from the C&D committee. It's Commissioner Toyota and we talked yesterday, and we don't see any major updates. It's maybe a few sentences in the report about the work that the shingles and drywall folks are doing to
Well, that's
respond to our earlier.
perfect. So that's exactly what I thought I'd do, is I thought I'd just go down the list and then jot some quick notes from each committee. I appreciate everybody's work and that it's a lot to juggle. And so I just thought maybe the easiest thing to do would be a quick and dirty review, seeing what you have to say about each of the things, whether or not you're going to have a policy, whether we have a policy, whether you're going to have text, or we're going to go with what we got. So if that's okay, I'll just run down each of these and just ask for a rapid fire response.
I'll give you a couple of sentences for the C&D group. So Commissioner Toyota and I will draft a couple sentences for the report part that you can just plop in that basically says
Great.
what's happening with shingles and drywall, because they are doing things. And
Super.
thermoforms are gone. So that Commissioner Davis, we're done. We've tried thermoforms. That didn't work. So that's probably should be disbanded. Does anybody disagree with that? At this point, that'll just be hammered out wherever it's hammered out. Okay. So we're just gonna get rid of that thermoforms committee for now.
Okay, Commissioner Sky and Oseguera on organic materials, renewable technologies.
So it's Sky because Oseguera is not here.
Yeah. Commissioner Sky, do you think you're going to have anything on there? Or in addition, or we're just going to go with what we got?
He's frozen, and I think that they might, because I know that I've been contacted by Eastman that is doing chemical recycling, and I've suggested that they submit a proposal to the commission and explaining their technology. As we've asked many, many times, we can't swing it a ghost. You got to tell us what the technology is. Just don't call it a name like molecular or advanced or something that we don't understand. So they might, I think, are coming back with some information that will be referred to that committee. So they may have something.
Okay, waste prevention and single-use plastics. I have it, feel free to chime in on this, Commissioner Schneider, but at this point, because there is the ballot initiative addressing single-use plastics, I think it might be prudent to sort of wait until we see what happens with that, as it would be such a significant shift in policies related to those. They have something on artificial turf, but Commissioner Schneider?
Well, on artificial turf, I haven't started drafting yet. I have found 3 embedded laws in different places in California code. And the advice was to track the authors if they're still in office, to try to see how open they are to modifying it. That's what's holding that up. In terms of single-use plastics, at least, and I'm a little confused, Ted, sorry, working on takeout food packaging, which can be single-use or can be the new renewable takeouts being used. My county has an ordinance for it. I don't know. My guess is most of the rest of the state doesn't. However, with COVID, the enforcement of it has been pushed to October, at least at the county level. So I think we'll still go forward with takeout food packaging on that with a reusable component. But that also comes back to recommending truly green, truly compostable products or truly reusable. And I always have to complicate things. It throws in space allocation for restaurants and possibly cooperative purchasing recommendations to local governments or chambers to help small businesses that are not a franchise. Have I confused everyone?
What I got,
we
might have something on food packaging.
We might, yes. I'm sorry, you wanted a bullet, yes.
All right, that's good. We're good. Okay, Commissioner Valle and Ward on bottle bill issues. We just hit, Commissioner Valle?
Commissioner Ward.
We had talked briefly about adding a brief sentence to the letter, but what are your thoughts currently?
No, we tried to meet with Susan. I don't know if you met with Susan Collins, who's an expert in this field, and we've punted several of these issues to the legislature. I've been doing it since the early 80s. And it's the same thing that keeps coming back. For some reason, there's some impediment, some wall, and nobody has the political will to push forward the expansion of the bottle bill, let alone trying to fix the redemption centers. And let me say one thing about the Bay Area with regard to redemption centers. There's one that opened up at a Costco not too far from here. I'm not sure about the details of that. But the cost of property, I'm just going to give you an example, our own personal example. We purchased 5 acres at our facility for $1.4 million. Yesterday, we got a call of people trying to buy our property for $24 million. So the cost for property is just outrageous in the Bay Area up north. There's a lot of community-based organizations because of COVID that do mental health, homelessness, and vaccinations that are being priced out of their facilities because their leases are up, the rents are up, and those community-based organizations are going out of business or having to be displaced and looking for consolidation. It's going to be extremely difficult for redemption centers to come back into being unless the stores themselves, the big supermarkets, allow them on their own properties. They're not going to independently find anywhere else to operate. So anecdotally, that's my short report on where we are.
Big deal. Okay, so looks like the bottle bill committee should meet in the coming week. Liaison with, I'm sorry, yes?
If you don't mind, because I have to jump off in about 5 minutes, can I quickly run through the commission?
Please do, yes, yes.
So for number 3, the Renewable Technology, Commissioner Segura and I definitely will have something. Our goal is to have it on our next agenda date. I shared a rough outline a few meetings ago, and we should have a more fleshed out version for you to consider. On item 20, I would want to defer to Commissioner Lapis if there's more that we want to update on that. I think it's a very solid couple of policies that we developed, but I do need to connect with Commissioner Lapis to review it in all honesty. And then 23 and 24 we've already covered, and we're very excited to see those moving forward.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners Toyota and Lapis regarding the liaison with Oregon DEQ.
We wrote up a report it's on the website, and I just want to know, do you want us to write sort of something smaller than that for the report, or to just incorporate that into the report? It's up to you.
I would recommend that you give just because everything's about a snapshot in time, is right before we finish this report, just get a paragraph about what's happening in Oregon. Put it into the report because they are the neighbor to the north that's been working on these things a little bit ahead of us. So if you could both just do that to plop in, that would work well.
We'll just send a paragraph of language on it then.
Love it. Thank you. Okay, Commissioners Davis and Sanborn regarding carpeting and flooring.
We emailed, and I don't think there's going to be more of an update. I think that there's a lot of stuff that will just happen, but we've already got a solid recommendation, and I don't see any more updates. Do you, Commissioner Davis?
No.
I don't. Yeah.
Okay. And moving on, Commissioner Davis, right to repair. Do you see any changes on the horizon?
There's legislation introduced, but that was part of our recommendations.
So perhaps just an update.
Reference the new legislation.
All right. Excellent. Okay, methane emission reductions, Commissioners Cadena and Davis.
Nothing I'm aware of.
Nope. All right. HHW container ID and EPR. We do have a draft policy update that is hopefully to be addressed this meeting, if not the next one. Anything else, Heidi?
Nope.
Okay. Davis Don Levy regarding glass packaging. Commissioner Davis?
Again, nothing I'm aware of.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thermoforms, I think we already addressed that. Maybe a paragraph or two.
2 thermoforms groups? I don't think so. I think
One was, I
we've
think
changed
the
membership,
formation of the
so-
second one, the first one was disbanded.
We had 3 actually. So.
Well, we switched who was on the same thermoforms group. We could never have more than 2 people, so we kept switching out who was interested in doing it. But I think all of them are gone. From what we could not resolve that one. So
Anybody want to take a crack at a paragraph or two describing process and efforts?
I can do that.
Okay. Excellent, thank you. Food grade packaging, Commissioners Dell and Schneider.
Yeah, we just addressed that one this morning, that we've done an initial policy recommendation, and then we're going to slow cook this over time. Some of the introductory paragraphs and the concerns around it could be included in the report. Do you want me to draft that?
Yeah, that would be helpful. Okay. Commissioners Valle and Oseguera on the charter update.
Not a whole lot to report, except that I will be meeting with a community law center. It's been around since the 70s, based in Oakland, to see if we can get them to review the charter and an opportunity to talk to their lawyers about the potential of receiving some assistance. They're a nonprofit organization. I've known them for years, and maybe this is a different way of looking at the charter from their eyes to see if we can do something about Bagley Clean, most especially about the 2-member committees. Those are the chief concern for us. So other than that, nothing to report.
Excellent. Commissioner Lapis, anything to add on the food waste prevention, rescue, exports, precautionary principle?
No, I think I'm a little confused about why those are lumped together.
Well,
no.
I think it's that Commissioner Sky and Lapis were on a couple committees, and as long as there's 2 of you, it all gets lumped together. So I think you were on food waste prevention and rescue, exports, and precautionary principle, and it was always.
No, no. I think Kobe's summary was good.
Excellent. Commissioner Toyota or Kalpikoff, I think, isn't here regarding organics contamination.
We plan on bringing a proposal at the next meeting for the organics contamination, and I did want to ask the commission if a little while after that for this report, I would like to also broaden that, because the biggest issue is we need the science to back up what we're going to do, and that goes to I'd like to broaden with a new policy, kind of a framework of monitoring and science for a circular economy, so that if we're going to really start moving these things like compost and making them circular, we need to be monitoring them. And so it kind of broke into 2 policies, one specifically for organics, which we'll have for the next meeting, and then we'd like to work on something a little broader in general for a circular economy, have a framework of that.
Okay, great. Excellent. Okay, Commissioner, well, we got 2 people missing on this one. Commissioner Kalpikoff and Oseguera on organic materials infrastructure and procurement. We'll skip for that one. And I think we've covered everything else. Design for recycling, unless Commissioner Sanborn, do you have anything to add on that one?
Yeah, we'll definitely have, I'm convinced it will not end up like thermoforms. We'll have an actual policy by June. So but we've got months to work on it together.
Excellent. Thank you so much for going through these reminders. I encourage you all to continue the good work with each of your committees. Thank you.
Thank you so much to you both for all the hard work on the report. We all really appreciate it. And I appreciate all of you who are working on it.
While we had the document up, I wanted to, we need to reconvene or create a two-person committee on the personal care product for paper. So an invitation to the rest of the commission if anybody would like to join.
Well, I'm sorry. So you're gonna keep working on sourcing of paper. The sourcing of
Yeah,
paper.
yeah, revisiting the proposal that we had last year.
Okay. So you're gonna try and update that policy.
That's correct.
Okay.
So inviting
anything else?
anybody in the group that would like to join. If not, we could work on that at a later point, but just wanted to bring it up to the whole group.
When you refer to paper, Commissioner, what kind of grade of paper are you talking about?
It was it started with a personal care paper product.
Toilet paper, basically.
Oh.
So this was the NRDC proposal about not taking virgin forest for toilet paper, which of course sounds repulsive. And it's biodiversity, but it's also an international issue because the government of Canada actually got involved and personally called me about where the commission is going on this. And I heard they reached out to the administration about the fact that we were promoting this. So this is a very political issue about sourcing of paper. And, you know, I was asking Commissioner Medrano, making sure it aligns with what our tasks have been, which is recycled content, you know, driving markets, because clearly this is a virgin material and they're taking virgin forest for things is unnecessary to make it out of, you know, that kind of tree. So but it's very political. So I'm not sure it's the highest thing on our list, but it's completely, you know, we've tried and so far we haven't had any luck, but that doesn't mean we can't keep trying. So if anybody wants to join Commissioner Medrano on this, and I see Commissioner Schneider, you have a comment and we have a public comment.
Thank you, Chair. I know I'm behind on doing my own work, so I hate to add another one, but the way I look at toilet paper and a lot of our other recycling market development work is which of the products should be manufactured as close to point of use. So it's something from COVID, it's the essential businesses. I look at toilet paper as an essential business, and just like composting operations. I would love to see us, and Commissioner Medrano, I'm happy to help you with this. It's essential we do it as close to point of use, so we reduce shipping pulp or paper from Canada on down. I have been to many of those forests that Canada is cutting down. I have many Canadian family members. So sorry, Canada, I love you, but taking boreal forests and turning them into toilet paper is obscene. But I'd love to see us come up with what are the essential businesses at the state level and at the local level. And to me, I'm trying to get my county to cite composting, a commercial scale composting operation, and the haulers here are fighting back on it. They're very pessimistic about 1383, and it's discouraging when I see it as post-COVID, let's learn how to bring manufacturing back to the U.S. and back to California. And, you know, if other countries don't like it, so what?
I would suggest...
I'd like to also get away from just using the product, the toilet paper product, because that's what we determined as a personal care paper product, because it involves other paper products, not just toilet paper.
I'm happy with, I'd rather look at it as essential businesses, essential products.
Can we narrow this to what our real task is here at the commission about recycled content and driving markets? Because if we narrow this to not address where the virgin is coming from, but simply that there's some products that do not need to come from virgin trees and that they should have high post-consumer content, I think we'd probably be able to get a lot further with that kind of narrow focus. So that would be my suggestion.
Agreed.
So and Commissioner Madrano, feel free to just bring that back, but that would be my thought, is that we just narrow it really to post-consumer content on certain types of products.
Great suggestion, and it calls for the task of this commission as well, with markets and recyclability. And,
Okay,
And-
great.
and
So
actually-
we'll add that into the report. Go ahead.
Towards that end, I think it would also be very appropriate for this committee to address the increasing market share of plastic-based fibers and their use in products that customers are not able to discern whether this is a paper product or a plastic product, and it is impeding our composting and recycling. And so, and it's increasingly a litter item. I regularly see those little plastic fiber wipes on the side of the road, and they don't degrade. So they're there for years. And I really think that that's something that we should be addressing because it is a very, very common source of confusion.
Well, actually, that's a great point, and I'm actually got a sign-on letter that's going around that we're going to submit next week to Congress. There's 2 bills in Congress. I think I've mentioned this before, but on our Truth in Labeling bill on flushable wipes from California, AB 818 last year, is now introduced in Congress as a bipartisan bill, the WIPES Act, and there's a new one that just dropped called the PIPES Act, also by the same co-authors that are bipartisan, that is going to set a standard for dispersibility of products that has anything on that is used for toiletry, basically. So those, anybody's interested in signing on, you can go to our website, but that could also be put into this. Those 2 bills are already in Congress, so I could be happy to share that with you, Commissioner Madrano. So let's move to, so we're going to add that committee back, Commissioner Madrano, and it looks like Commissioner Schneider would be on it. And then do we have public comment on this?
A public comment from Jonathan Carrasco. They left a link to a resource recycling article about a Houston MRF operation that signed a chemical recycling MOU, and that comment is published to the public comment portal, so the link can be accessed through that.
A MRF signed a contract for chemical recycling, is that? Okay, I think I saw that.
No, it was an MOU.
An MOU, got
An
it.
MOU and a memorandum of understanding to discuss something in the future.
Oh, so they did a press release and something like that. Okay. Very good. Thank you. So are there any other comments on the reports of the 2-person committees? Seeing
I just have a quick comment, Madam Chair. I'm trying to read a paragraph again from Resource Recycling on an issue that was very timely that we took up last year. Let me read that verbatim. A number of factors, this is regarding plastic exports taking a tumble. A number of factors have contributed to lower scrap plastic exports of late. After China's import restrictions began slowing exports in 2017, other nations received substantially more material than they had in the past, leading to their own import restrictions. Then beginning in 2021, the Basel Convention began regulating scrap plastic shipments globally. The U.S. is not a party to the convention, a fact that has made it more difficult for U.S. exporters to trade the material with Basel party countries. Again, we told everybody this was going to happen. It's happening now, and I'm hoping that in Washington, people are going to start paying attention and jump on board with the Basel Convention.
Thank you, Commissioner Dahl.
Seeing that the topic of exports has come up, I would like to add that to the agenda for the next meeting. That the year-end annual data has come out for the U.S. and California is the lead exporter of plastic waste to poor countries in Mexico. We are flooding Mexico now that it is harder to export to Asia, and I'd like to give a full update on all of California's plastic waste exports to poor countries.
That's the agenda at the end on agenda 12. So let's make sure you bring that up there and we get that there. Okay. So there anything else on these 2-person committees and the report? All right, seeing none. So we'll go ahead and move on to agenda item number 8. discussion on with Cal Recycle on education and outreach. And is there anybody from Cal Recycle who's ready to discuss that? There she is. Hi, Zoe.
So I should turn myself off mute. Good morning, everyone. So I will give a brief update. I know we're tight on time today to allow some time for question and answer too. So just want to thank you all for inviting us back to present on our education outreach campaign. I'm not sure if any of you had the opportunity to tune in to our Cal Recycle monthly public meeting yesterday, but our Director of Public Affairs, Maria West, gave an overview and also shared a video that displayed some of the ads that have been released. The campaign launched earlier this month, and it features multiple resources, including advertisements, a new website that you can find at irecyclesmart.com, and tools for jurisdictions to provide local information to their residents. You've maybe heard some of the ads. They've been on NPR and some other media outlets. We'll also have them on TV and streaming platforms. The ads are designed to grab a person's attention and positively engage them in seeing themselves as part of the solution to help Californians, improve recycling overall and recycle right. The ads also direct people to our website. That's the irecyclesmart.com website, where they can learn quite a bit more than what's displayed in the ad. So reducing contamination, as you're all aware, is a focus, proper sorting, and then specifics as to how to identify what's collected in your jurisdiction. So there's a drop down with the alphabet where you can easily find your jurisdiction, and we've directed each one of those links to the specific jurisdiction website so that people have a one-stop shop to collection programs where they work, where they live, where they're visiting, et cetera. This is the first time the department's had a statewide resource for residents to quickly find local recycling information. And because, as you know, there's so much local control in the state, it's important for it all to be centralized somewhere, since we're not all, just in the city that we live. Jen, would you like to ask the question now, or would you like me to get through this?
Go ahead and finish. Yeah.
Okay. So in previous discussions that we've had with you all about education outreach, we've heard your concerns about the diversity of recycling programs across the state and the need for some consistent statewide messaging to align with, while not contradicting, local messaging. And we've talked about the complexities there. So while we've launched this as a statewide outreach campaign, we're ensuring that the public is directed back to these local resources and that jurisdictions are being supported to conduct their complementary outreach. You'll also see on the website there are those materials that are not accepted in recycling bins across the state. And although there's not many, we did highlight those on the website. So once again, I know I have a short amount of time today, but did want to give you an option to take a deeper dive. OPA is hosting a webinar on February 23rd, specific for jurisdictions to get more information on the new campaign and various materials available to them, and also to solicit some feedback from those jurisdictions. Additionally, education outreach, our requirement for jurisdictions in SB 1383, we've mentioned this before. Many of the resources that are being developed as part of this campaign will help these jurisdictions meet their SB 1383 requirements. And there's SB 1383 grant funds that can be used to provide education and outreach materials. And Cal Recycle is developing an organics toolkit resource to support their efforts. Those local assistant grants for 1383, we received over 475 applications from jurisdictions. So very well subscribed, and we anticipate we'll see some of that translate over into education and outreach. One of the important questions that you all have asked is whether topics such as source reduction and reuse will be included in the campaign. The iRecycle Smart website is going to be regularly updated with new content, including information about source reduction. And we welcome, Commissioner, your ideas on source reduction, overall messaging that. It's a tough one, messaging, what people aren't generating and how to get that message across succinctly in a way in which people can broadly understand. So we welcome your input. And we want to thank John Davis for sharing the research findings on how you all successfully reduce contamination for the residential recycling pilot project. This information is incredibly helpful for us and can help inform our iRecycle Smart website. So I'll stop there. A lot more to share, but I'll stop there. I want to open it up for questions, and then we can I can come back anytime to provide more information on any of these components. Jan?
Oh, great. Okay, so I look carefully at all the acceptance lists across the state at 75 MRFs in the different cities, and there's clearly cities and MRFs who are accepting plastics that are not recyclable, and definitely are not recyclable in California or domestically. Plastic cutlery in some, and so I would like to ask CalRecycle whether you're endorsing false lists and just linking to these lists of items that clearly are not recyclable, if this is actually a bad thing to be doing. What due diligence have you done to know that it is appropriate to endorse a link to that list?
Thank you for that comment, Jan, and it's certainly worth considering, and it's a little bit of a double-edged sword, because if people don't know what their jurisdictions are accepting, particularly for those materials that are getting recycled, then there is a lot of that, wish cycling or wrong recycling that happens. We don't have the authority to provide, to direct jurisdictions as to what to put on their list or what not to put on their list, nor do we have the authority to determine what those products are. So I hear your point, and it's well taken, and we'll definitely bring it back to Director Wagner and our public affairs team, because I do see the value in both including and not including, given some of the challenges that you mentioned. I saw someone else with their hand up and now I've lost it. Was it Ted? Was it?
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Yeah, thank you, Zoe. Really appreciate the update, particularly with respect to education on source reduction and waste prevention. With respect to SB 1383, I really think that CalRecycle is a great place to promote at-home food waste prevention. Pickling, soups, stews, the basic things that you can do to have as little food go into your compost bin or go into the trash as possible. That's going to be similar information statewide. And I know that it's hard for CalRecycle to do waste prevention information. I know that's challenging for all sorts of reasons, but to the extent that we have to reduce food waste, that we're looking at food rescue, we should be educating everybody in California about how to reduce their food waste in their home, because those tools are going to be pretty much the same statewide, regardless of the collection program after the fact. So again, I strongly encourage CalRecycle to look at food waste prevention as a major aspect of their source reduction outreach in their education.
Ted, thank you so much for that comment. And we've done some social media on food waste reduction and strategies for things that are easy for anyone to do in their home. And that's an excellent recommendation. We'll bring it back to the team. And agree with you as far as complying with 1383. How can we prevent the organic waste that we're generating overall? And there's solutions in place for reducing food waste. So thank you for that.
Okay, I don't see any other questions or comments. Okay, so there's going to be a public webinar then to give the local government some more information, so that's great to know. So I think we had asked that you come back like once a month to just give quick updates, if that's okay. So we'll decide if we're going to have 2 meetings or 1 next month, and then we'll let you know, and hopefully you can attend.
Thank you, Heidi. And thank you, Commissioners, for your work.
Thank you very much, Zoe, for all your help on so many levels. Okay, so that was agenda item number 8. I'm going to have to leave here pretty soon to attend to my doctor's appointment and leave here. I can be on the phone for a bit, but I've got agenda item number 9, which is an update on active legislation, and this should be quick. The bills can be introduced through Friday, this Friday. So this is not going to be a complete list. This is a start, but I will give you the quick and dirty rundown. Assembly member Laura Friedman has a bill AB 2026 on packaging, retail, and retail collection is in there, but it's focused really around, commerce, e-commerce packaging. And they just had a big kickoff on that. So there's information there that relates to some of the things we've discussed before. AB 2208 was introduced by Ash Kalra. That is directly aligns with one of our recommendations in the hazardous waste recommendation. It is to phase out the sale of mercury-containing lighting in the state by 2025. It is a bill sponsored by my organization, and that would be the first in the nation, although Vermont is going through the same process right now. We have AB, what is it, 1920, which is our bill. I didn't write it down. I can't keep all these numbers straight. On that also aligns, at least in part, with our recommendations on hazardous waste. It is the bill on tobacco waste. It's the Tobacco Waste or Smoking Waste Pollution Prevention Act. AB 1690 by Luz Rivas is our author, and that will ban the sale of single-use vaping products. They have reusables and they have batteries, and so we want to ban the sale of those. Unrelated to the commission work is also the banning of plastic filters on the cigars and the cigarettes that also are probably some of the most littered products in the world. Then there's SB 38. You've all, that's the bottle bill. Bill that Wajkowski is still going. That just got updated to change who is paying for the program from distributors to producers, by the way. Just FYI, I just got that notice yesterday. AB 1793 by Assemblymember Quirk. This is also a bill that we're sponsoring. This is to stop retailers from having to burn products that are returned. So currently, DTC law says that if a product has not been animal tested, like a makeup, cruelty-free, and it gets returned, they cannot verify that it is not hazardous. Therefore, it's automatically hazardous and must be burned. And it's costing the retailers a fortune to burn things they don't want to burn. And so we're trying to get get rid of the animal testing at the front end and the back end by, instead of requiring that those things either be animal tested or burned, that we actually just do computational toxicology, which is a formula. And we know these things. I mean, other states are doing it. We're one of the last states, and it's costing the retailers, literally some of them are spending $5 million a year burning things they don't want to burn that aren't even toxic. It's kind of bananas. And so that's AB 1793. Then there's AB 661 Bennett. That's the bill that came out of the State Agency by Recycle campaign update. That's still in play from last year, the 2-year bill. AB 1369, also by Bennett. That is the Buy Clean campaign. That's kind of related to what we do in that they're trying to make sure the state is voting with its dollars to not support high carbon materials, which gets to our kind of don't undermine recycling economics, don't continue to buy things that are undermining our systems, but it's a little bit tangential. SB 54 is still in play by Senator Allen on packaging, and then SB 983 by Eggman on right to repair, which of course we have spoken to. Are there other bills that anybody wants to raise? And then we'll, at the next meeting, Commissioner Lopez and I will have time to confab and getting a final update to you on legislation.
Hey, sorry.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. I apologize, Heidi. You did ask me ahead of time to submit some things, and I did not get them to you. Part of that is that it's sort of just a changing, as you know, it's a bit of a changing landscape as bills are being introduced this week. But a few more I wanted to highlight. AB 1857 by Cristina Garcia reclassifies incineration as disposal. We have the 2 transformation facilities in the state that have been grandfathered in as diversion, and so this would eliminate that. SB 1046 bans non-compostable plastic produce and meat bags, all pre-checkout bags. AB 1985, that last one was by Eggman and Lena Gonzalez. AB 1985 by Robert Rivas is about 1383 procurement. Right now, it's sort of a spot bill about putting procurement projects on CalRecycle's website, but there are ongoing conversations with stakeholders about what we can do to support procurement under 1383. And I think you covered the rest. Yeah, I think that covers all the ones that have been introduced so far.
Great, thank you so much. So we'll go ahead and compile a list and have that all pretty, and we'll track it together. And we won't bother Mindy unless we need input from CalRecycle on specific bills or something. Okay, so that's that. And then we will move on to agenda item 10, which is commission structure and management. And this was about, we were talking about commission's charter, the two-person committee on that, Bagley-Keene rules, and that two-person committee was, Commissioner Osagura is not here. I did find out CalRecycle said they will not post the charter on their website because they believe, we are an independent commission, and that is our internal working document. So I've put it on the Google Docs. So that's where it lives, in our control, not on theirs. So that's why it's not there. And they are working on it. Is there any update to that, Commissioner Valle, Vice Chair? You wanna?
I did report earlier,
That's what I thought.
very briefly, that we're going to consult with the East Bay Community Law Center. Alex and I will be speaking with them. Okay.
Great. Great. And then I did send an email and CC the Vice Chair to Senator Eggman's office about the Bagley-Keene rules. I've not heard back. I asked again this morning if there was any, just to make sure she got the email, but they're in the busiest part of the year. So I think we'll probably hear soon. And then commission appointments, I don't think that's been settled because I think Commissioner Lapis and CalRecycle might see this differently as far as what the authority of the bill did. So I'm still not sure what's going on. We appoint ourselves or from here on out, or but I will definitely work to get some clarification. Zoe, do you have any update on that, how you guys see it?
I do, just briefly, and this aligns with the other, advisory bodies that we appoint. So AB 1583 provides CalRecycle with the authority to convene the commission. With the authority to appoint commissioners, the department also has the implicit authority to remove commissioners since these are not permanent appointments. The charter reflects the 2-year terms. There's no authority for us or for the commission on the term limits. So the statute, there's the plain language of the statute, which you've all have looked at. So that's how we read statute.
Okay, Commissioner Lapis.
Yeah, I think this also goes in the category of things that we need alleged counsel opinion on because we might just disagree.
Okay, so just to make sure I understood this correctly. So the way CalRecycle sees it, you have the appointing capacity for this independent commission, but you don't put term limits on it. There's no authority for you to put term limits on it. So basically, we're like the Supreme Court. We have lifetime appointments. Is that it?
Yeah, I believe Zoe is saying that they can withdraw members and appoint new people.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, with, the legal interpretation is that with the authority to appoint, we have the implicit authority to remove as well.
Implicit authority to remove. Okay.
Quick question on that issue. We've had one seat open for a number of months. Is there any indication that the director will be appointing somebody to that vacant seat? And have you received resumes?
Thank you for that question, Richard. And the statute also doesn't direct a number of appointed commissioners. The statute instead directs representation from 3 specific categories. So the way in which Director Wagner is looking at it is, to revisit the makeup of the commission in the summer and, identify if the charge of the commission, of the convening of the commission is filled in the representation from the existing commissioners at that time.
Okay, to be continued. Thank you.
No problem.
So it could be that, Vice Chair, you and I draft an email to Senator Eggman and ask this question as well. Okay. All right. Well, never a dull moment here on the commission. Thank you very much, Zoe. And we'll go ahead and move on to agenda item 11, data review and requests. I did post 2 this morning, and I'm sorry, but they were short. Updates from CalRecycle on data requests that have been asked for. Hopefully you've all looked at them. If you have any questions, now would be the time to ask them. Or if you have any other data requests that are outstanding you'd like to see followed up on, or new data requests.
I'd like to follow up on the Basel Convention, again, pushing Washington to make a decision, asking what the status of the resolution that was passed by our legislature that was forwarded to Washington. Maybe we can track it and find out, because at some point I see it being a major impediment that's going to affect our industry.
I agree. I think that that's almost something you and I should talk about and see if we can just dig in and follow up, because I don't think that's something CalRecycle is going to be able to. I mean, it's federal, and I'm not sure how within their purview that is. So we might be just doing our own work at this point. So I'd be happy to try and follow up. I'm going to be there in March. We also have, and I should bring this up. So Rachel, I had a talk with Director Wagner yesterday. I haven't talked to her in a while. And she did say that she's available to respond to us April 6th at the April 6th meeting about our request to get responses on what she thought of our proposals to date. So she was, so I was going to put her on the agenda for April 6th. So this could be one of those questions that we bring up then. And maybe what we do is, Commissioner Vahey, if you could start a list of questions to make sure we address with Director Wagner, that would be really helpful. And this could be one of them. And you and I, in the meantime, could follow up on that.
Ted, can you help me receive those questions? Either send your questions to Ted or myself, please.
Okay.
I'd be happy to do that, and I suggest we add that as an agenda item for the meeting before that April 6th to make sure we're all on board with the question.
Yeah, that sounds good. Okay. Well, then we'll move on from 11 to agenda item 12, which is next meeting and agenda items for future meetings. So let's start with this. This is the busiest time of year for legislation, and this commission did a whole lot of work to get reports out by December and updates, and the legislature is moving on those things. And for those of us involved in it, it's a very, very, very busy time of year. So, and I just got, 3 of us were missing today altogether because of busyness. So my recommendation, and happy to hear everybody's thoughts on this, was to skip the March 2nd meeting and just hold the March 16th meeting. And then we can decide if we need 2 meetings in April at the March 16th meeting. But that also gives all of you more time to work on your policies. Is that okay? Is there anybody who's not okay with that? I see thumbs up in a lot of places. I know Commissioner Osigura suggested this in an email as well. He'd be supportive of this. Commissioner Schneider, did you want to say something? I'm sorry, remove. Okay. Anybody else?
Previous item, no worries.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. All right. Well, I don't see any opposition to that. So, okay, Commissioner Dell.
Are we talking about the agenda for that meeting yet? Or not
No,
yet?
we're talking about which meeting. Like, so this would, it sounds like everybody's okay with skipping the March 2nd meeting. And if that's the case, then we're talking now about the March 16th meeting. So that now we can talk about that agenda if everybody's okay. All right. So
Great,
yes, go
thanks.
ahead.
So I'd like to add the latest data on plastic waste exports, which show that California exported 65 million kilograms of plastic waste to poor countries, and then another non-OECD, and then another 40 million to Mexico. None of these countries have good plastic waste collection recycling of their own and significant plastic pollution. And I'd like to have a few minutes to present all the data of what's happening to California's plastic waste, and the great news that CMA CGM, the big French shipping company, has agreed to stop exporting plastic waste. 50,000 shipping containers of plastic waste will no longer be loaded on their ships starting June 1st. And yes, that was a major trade route from Long Beach Harbor to Port Klang, Malaysia. So I'd like time to present all the latest data so we all work on a fact-based data basis when it comes to plastic recycling. Thank you.
Okay, so what I have right now for that agenda is the normal stuff, and then we'll get right into, we'll try again. Since this is fresh on our mind, I think we take up the item that Kobe and I have been working on, design for recycling, because that'll be still first reading because we didn't have it really properly noticed today. The design for recycling we'll take up first. That'll probably be 30 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes. And then we go back to the two others, the food grade packaging policy discussion for half an hour. Commissioners Dell and Schneider, is that what you would?
Honestly, I don't think we'll have, I don't think we'll have new policy to recommend at that point, but the presentation around plastic recycling and capacity, I've been mapping what actually is California's food grade recycling capacity. There's only 6 facilities. That could be part of the the data discussion. But then the other policy that Commissioner Dunleavy is leading, that my name's also on, around the contaminants in beverage bottles, that should definitely be on the agenda.
Right. So then, okay, so we will not do a separate agenda item for the food grade packaging. We'll do the one Kobe and I had first, then we'll do the eliminating toxics and additives in plastic containers policy discussions. Commissioners Dell and Dunleavy are doing that. So that's a half an hour. And then after that, was 20 minutes, if you can get us the PowerPoint so we can all look through it and the data beforehand, and then you do 20 minutes of Q&A, and then we'll do that after those two policies. Are there any other policies the commissioners want up? And I see some hands, so it looks like Commissioner Warden and Valle.
Yeah, as you know, Chair Sanborn, we have a draft update of the policy on HHW and EPR addressing containers that once held hazardous waste and additional labeling requirements on that. I'd like to have that addressed next meeting.
Thank you so much. And that was one of our priority items. So I definitely don't want to not do that. So that should probably come before the report on the plastics. Maybe we do that first, but that shouldn't take that long because that's just a quick update.
So maybe it shouldn't, and for the commissioner's benefit, it is loaded onto the agenda folder and the Google Docs Drive, and the changes are highlighted.
Okay, so let's see if we can give that about 15 minutes just to do a quick update and feedback on that. Again, that's not the last bite at the apple. And then I don't see anything else because then April 6th we have, or no, we'll have Zoe come back for a few minutes on any questions on education at that point, maybe just 10 minutes, another 5-10 minutes with her. And anything else? Looks like Commissioner Valle.
Just real quick, I'm going to circle back with Jim Puckett, and I'd like to have about 10 minutes to see where we are again with the Basel Convention. I'd like to report back to the commission. I just need about 10 minutes.
Okay, and you want that to be a separate item?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Very good. And I want to thank the CalRecycle staff. They're doing a great job of keeping track of all this and sending me draft agendas based on what they hear you all say. So thank you again, CalRecycle. I have to run off to a doctor's appointment, so I am going to have to turn this over unless we are finished. But I think we're there.
We've lost too many people.
Yeah, I agree. Very good. Well, listen, enjoy the month off, and the next few weeks off. But if you do have time to get working on your projects, do that. And thank you so much. Everybody have a good month, and we'll see you on March 16th. Thanks again, everybody. Great job.
Great day. Bye.